Hey guys, welcome to Red Line Talk Show. I'm here today with Iliana, and our special guest today it's Elsa Lulaj, an accomplished educator and a community leader. Welcome to the show.
Hi,
Thank you.
Elsa.
Thank you. Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Elsa, welcome to the show. I know that we're going to get into your background a little bit more. So let's start off with that. Tell us a little bit about your career in public education.
So originally, when I started off, I had no intentions of becoming a teacher, none at all. Like we take those common assessments at school, and it used to come up when you those things like what your interests are, and then it says your career path should be this.
Yeah.
And I would always get teacher, nurse, psychologist, and I'm like, nope, not doing that.
You're a giver.
Yeah, no. So that's not. And my mother and father are like, yeah, teacher. You get, the traditional stay at home during the summer with your kids, mom, and all that. What I did know I didn't want to do is do any more of the family business because growing up, dad and mom, my dad limited English, so I was always filling out a lease, doing the
So
bank
property
deposits.
management was not in your
I
cards.
did. I had no interest because of the so intense of my father standing behind me and not liking the way I write the number 2. I was like always like, because their handwriting was incredible from back home. I think cursive writing was. He's like, what is this? So I knew that I didn't want to do that. I had my interests were in industrial psychology. And when I got engaged and get married and realized that there was no local university offering industrial psychology, I went with psych and social work. When I graduated and looking for a job without a master's in psychology, there's no way you're really going to become an accomplished anything else other than a school psychologist or something else. So somebody offered me a job. They actually heard that I was looking for a job, and there was an influx of migrants, Albanian migrants back then in early 90s in District 10. They're looking for Albanian-speaking teachers. And I'm like, sure, let me try it. And started in 92, November 15th, 92. So I hit my anniversary. And since then, it just took off on its own. So those assessments, they're not wrong.
I had the same thing. I was healthcare teacher, and that's exactly what I went into. Healthcare.
Yeah, they are on point. It's just I fought it. Maybe if I didn't fight it, or maybe it was best this way because it was just where I was
all
meant
about
to
timing.
be.
Exactly.
But I also think it's sometimes your path takes you where you're supposed to be.
Right.
I believe the psych and social work also helped me be a better educator.
Definitely.
There's a certain empathy that you start to build that you need as an educator, especially when you're doing urban schools. So
Yeah. So let's talk about that specifically. So you're an educator for over 30 years now? Close to
32.
32 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. I started off as a teacher in middle school. And then from there, did my master's in middle school education and multicultural concentration. And then from there, became a literacy coach because I always continued learning. Like I never said, okay, so you just need a master's. No, I went in and did my 30 above in science because I wanted to do science, be a science teacher. Did a lot of credits in literacy as well, and then became a literacy coach. And then from there, did my admin license, another master's. And from there, I lead teacher and many other roles. And then I joined the district offices.
So now you're currently working in the district offices.
I've been in the district offices since 2007 or 8, supporting schools and school leaders with school improvement.
So more of an administrative role.
Correct, yes.
So you are currently director of continuous improvement
Correct, for District
for
7.
District 7. What does that entail exactly?
So it's, there's schools that are designated by the state as failing, using their formula. And then because of that, they get additional support. Excuse me, additional support from the district or from the state. And you support them with data, like problems of practice, instruction, leadership, systems, structures, things of that nature.
So I want to get into a little bit about the public education system. I came here in '97, seventh grade.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't speak English, a word of English, so I had to learn English and all that. What I noticed right away is that how easy it was, especially math level, when I got here. I was doing, algebra, way advanced math, versus here was just basic, multiplication, things like that. And I'm like, wow, this is really easy. So I was at the top of my class without a word of English and just doing math alone. Do you see? How do you rate the current education system now in the United States?
So when the story you're telling is not just your story, I think it's a common story for many. In my experience, it's been students that come from any parts of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And because that's basically the demographics that were in the schools that I taught. There were Black, Hispanic, and then there's a large population of Albanians.
Eastern Europe.
Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And so they were always, and I taught math. So my Albanian students in the class always outshined in math, more so than all the other students, especially American-born students, even American-born Albanians, because they grew up in this system. So yes, you probably did more of advanced math back home, or grade level math. Unfortunately, here we do have the standards in the curriculum that might say that the students at 5th grade or 6th grade should know fractions, right? But when you look at the data and the students that you have, you craft your lessons to the middle. And so the students that are not at that level, or the students that are above, your lessons, unfortunately, or the assignments that you're giving, you're working towards the middle or the majority of the classroom. So that does happen. And it's a lot for us sometimes to ask, or it might be overwhelming for some teachers too, even though it's asked of them to differentiate and create lessons that meet all the needs of all students. But unfortunately, when you do your lesson up front, you're doing it, you have to pick, the lesson that you're giving. So we do have a lot of students. And then I'm sure your teacher asked you to help tutor the other kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah. I was helping out with, to me, it was so easy. It was just like, I was just amazed at the
and
level.
then you try to pair them up, or, create the groups in where there's one level lower, one middle, one higher. But, you try to do your best. It is challenging because you could potentially have 30 kids in a class and have to do, if you really did it accurate, 5 or 6 different lessons, because everybody's on a different level for whatever you're teaching. And so that's not making an excuse, but I know sometimes that's the stuff that can happen.
When you think back of 30 years ago when you first started in the education system, and now you're looking at today's education system, what would you say are the key differences or culture changes of what was being taught back then versus now?
So I think there's always a push to be innovative with curriculum. In being innovative, sometimes it's a good thing, but sometimes, for the basics, you don't have to be innovative. Like basic math skills, basic reading skills, there's no real innovation that you have to go outside and think outside the box. But, with a society today with kids on their phones, you have to find ways to be engage students.
Yeah.
Engagement has always been an issue. But now you have that technology engagement piece. But you always had to work hard in trying to get students' engagement at any level, because you probably were not engaged in the classroom doing those easy problems and bored. And sometimes with that, when students get bored, they act out, behavioral issues can show up. But if I think about cultural issues that we're facing today, like I knew as an educator, the parents that came in for parent-teacher conference never looked at the teacher as being the problem for their kid. They always asked about their student behavior and other things. Like they were concerned about their child and didn't make excuses. If their kid didn't learn, they would say, what can I do
To help.
to help?
Yeah.
Today there's a shift, and I've seen it also myself as a parent of 3 children. Well, the teacher didn't do this, and the teacher didn't do that. So there's a blame game happening instead of considering partnership and incorporating people into the conversation. Everybody's blaming each other why things are failing. Parents are blaming teachers. Teachers are blaming parents or the student. And meanwhile, the whole victim, I don't want to call victim, but the whole,
Well, they're the victim. Yeah.
the victim of the whole
students,
blame
yeah.
game is the child.
Yeah.
Right.
And most times children don't advocate for themselves and don't know how to advocate for themselves. So that's
Do you
somewhat of some of the issues that we're facing today is that
Yeah.
the constant blaming. Like you see it every day in the news, the politics, everything.
Yeah.
Everybody's blaming everybody, but no one's holding, and they're holding schools accountable, but no one's holding parents accountable. And I could elaborate on the parent accountability.
yeah,
Let's say attendance. Like we're
Yeah.
holding schools accountable to increase their attendance. Their chronic absenteeism since COVID has been very high. And you've seen article after article about
Yeah.
the percentage of students that are missing 15, 18, 20 days of school a year. Parents are allowing it. They're holding schools accountable. They're going to teachers. Why? You reaching out to the parent? Are you doing this? They can make the phone calls and parents will be like, stop calling me. He's not coming to school today. He doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
But no one's holding parents accountable to it. I don't know what that accountability could look like
Right.
and what it should be. But that the accountability is there, but I think they're shifting the accountability. And accountability is not a bad thing, but I think that just the accountability is so much on the school to, ensure that the students' well-beings and education's happening, but the accountability for parents is not there as much.
That makes a lot of sense. When I was younger, I wasn't allowed to miss a day of school. Even if I wasn't feeling well, you have to stay strong, you can do it, you have to go to school. And I would go. Snowstorm, blizzard of 96, almost the whole school was out. I was one of the students that was still in class. Today, I feel like you mentioned something where the parent said, my child doesn't feel like going to school.
Yeah.
And now they're not going to school.
And they don't go to school.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a change, a shift of parenting, of how parents used to raise their child, back in the 80s, 90s, or earlier, versus today, where now I feel like the power is in the child instead of in the parent.
Yes. But I also think there's, when we use the excuse like, oh, yeah, nobody goes to school today in the snowstorm. I'm the only one there. The 3 or 4 kids that were there every snowstorm with 100% certificate to show at the end. Today, kids will say the whole class will be out. And, they'll tell a different narrative. We watch movies all day or something like that. And then the parent will keep the child home. And they fall under the pressure rather than arguing with kids, which are great because kids can come up with a real persuasive argument today of why they shouldn't go to school. And parents are like, hands up and let it go. But it was a different culture, I think. And I think as I'm going to speak from my family and the Albanian culture, education was not available to them the way that's why they came here, right?
Yeah.
So they valued education and they knew that the only way for the family to grow or survive or make money or become successful was through education. So we couldn't miss a day of school. There was no sick, whatever it was, as long as you didn't have a fever and you weren't vomiting, you were going to school.
So, from your view, what are some of the biggest challenges that educators face today in the school system?
So if I speak as a teacher, and if I was in the classroom today, the demand is high. Like there's always a demand. You're teaching other people's children. You have 30 lives in front of you that you're ultimately responsible for and their well-being and ensuring that they grow and develop as into productive adults. There's always something new. Like there's a new program, but that's always been the case, but it seems like there's so much now. Bring technology in your classes, engage students, new math, new this. It's, so there's always these new things. And as soon as you could think you could sigh, and say there's a relief here, there's something else coming from up top.
So let's talk about
Managing-
that.
yeah.
Let's talk about the up top, because you often hear that some of these teachers say that they don't have a say in what they teach. It's come from above. Is that true? Do they have any flexibility as far as you as a teacher, if you're teaching something that maybe it's not the right quality of teachings, you have to teach that type of?
So New York City has done a very good job at looking at research-based curriculum and finding the curriculum that is aligned to the standards and the level of where students should be, right? So in the past, when I started teaching, we were given a book with the standards, and it was just, here you go, and here's a textbook, and teach it. And you had to figure it out on your own. We knew what the standards were. It's like at the end of, sixth grade, they needed to learn to do this, right? Now, they're actually given a very well thought out curriculum, but you have to be that teacher that adds their teacher magic in it, knowing your students. So you have to know your students, know the curriculum, and then bring your own teacher magic in there. So for a teacher that says, oh, it's scripted, it comes from the top, the curriculum is scripted, yes, maybe in some cases, where it tells you, say this, say that.
Right.
But you are given the flexibility to incorporate what you know about the students into the lesson. So I don't, particularly buy it. They're asking, to engage students in learning using this curriculum. You have to figure it out a little bit, and you could add your teacher magic. So yes and no. It's not, I don't think if you don't read the line from the book and you came up with a better line, as long as it's better, I don't think any administrator is going to say that you didn't stick with the script. I'm sorry.
There's been, Finland and all these countries in Europe, they have a very high level rankings in education compared to United States. And some of that has to do with test taking. In your view, do you think that we should move away from this mass test taking system that we have in place?
My personal opinion?
Yeah.
No. We should not
So you
move away
believe
from it.
you believe in that?
Well, in your job, in your functional area, are
Yeah.
you not held accountable to data? Doesn't somebody
but
evaluate
look at the
your
rankings though. So their system doesn't do any tests.
Testing, okay, so testing is not bad, right? Because then you're measuring your effectiveness.
Okay.
And we shouldn't wait till the end of the school year to measure the effectiveness of our teaching. Testing for the sake of testing, just to assess and not make any adjustments in the middle, then there's a problem. So if we're over-assessing, yes, but you have to do a deep analysis of all the assessments you have at the school level as a school leader, and then remove certain assessments that are just giving you the same information. The other thing is that you have to look if your culture in your building actually uses the assessment data to make adjustments. So like in your case, when you were in the classroom, when the teacher saw that you kept on getting hundreds and finishing the work within 15 minutes, at one point, should she have said, wait a minute, I have to bring in something else for you? Or do we wait till the end of the school year to realize, hey, you're a level 4, we'll put you in another program next year?
Right.
there should have been something done in between for you. So assessments are not bad, but if you're just assessing and not making adjustments, then it's a bad culture. There's a story, like a fable about weighing a pig. And I'm not saying our kids are pigs, so please. But it's a fable about, this kid wanted to take the pig to the state fair. And every week it would take him one day to go up the mountain to the village that had a scale, and then one day to come back. So he was going up the hill every week one day and one day back. And so 2 days out of the week, he was spending to go weigh the pig, and then instead of feeding the pig. So he was realizing that the pig wasn't changing in weight because you weren't feeding the pig. You were too busy going to weigh it. So that's weighing too much.
Makes sense.
So the weigh is the assessment. So no, assessments aren't bad. And Finland, I'm sure, assesses.
I don't think they do.
They have to assess. How do they know they're good? They have to make some kind of assessment. I'm not too familiar.
I think I read through some articles. They're saying that they really don't test kids.
They don't do multiple choice questions.
Multiple choice questions.
So
Correct.
it's more about knowing the content and actually being able to verbalize what the answers are versus
I also
picking.
I think maybe we might be assessing a little too early.
Yes.
That might be the problem.
Right.
I think
And then this applies to kids from middle school.
Well, we're talking about kindergarten too. Like
Right,
we started
kindergarten, middle
assessment.
school.
We started assessment in kindergarten.
Through high school, they don't test, right? So to me, and it's a different methodology, but it's working for them. They're one of the highest ranked in education.
Multiple choice, I think, gives you some information about what the kid's able to do, but I do think like constructive response, open response, those are more, gives you a little more detail.
Yes, it gives you more critical
thinking.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
And we've, I think one thing that we are currently sidelined because of all the science of reading and making sure the kids are on phonics and comprehension, that we've not focused on writing as much as we should. But now with ChatGPT, that might hold,
You've been deeply involved in the Albanian community, especially through the work with the Lady of Shkodra Church.
Yeah.
Walk us through a little bit about that work, because I know you personally from, Mark Jonah's
campaign times.
campaign times.
Yeah, those are good times
those
back
were
then.
Good times.
A lot of learning for all of us.
Yeah, so we can talk about that as well,
Yeah.
because that was a good experience.
That was an excellent experience, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, born Albanian Catholic, parents were very practicing Catholics. We went also to religious instruction the way it was back then. And also grew up with that mindset of attending church every Sunday. So we did that with the kids as well. We were, as parents, wanted to make sure that our kids also maintain the culture as much as possible. They were enrolled in school with one or two Albanians in there, and we were always, worried that they'll forget the language, the culture, the religion, everything. So the Our Lady of Shkodra Church serves for us multiple purposes at that time, with the community center downstairs. It's a community church, so it's not like a church that people go from the neighborhood. There are some people that live in the vicinity, but it is, the Mass is said in Albanian. The kids, that when they go to religious instruction, was predominantly in Albanian, so they learn their prayers in Albanian. But the other parts of the church in the Mother Teresa Center was Rizafati, Drita, and all these other groups that worked on the cultural part of it. So there was dance, Albanian language, and then, Bible study or the youth group and things of that nature. So when the church moved to Hartsdale, and my kids were little, my husband and I started to volunteer. And Father Peter at the time, with his vision, he pictured a place where after church, people could come down and have coffee and donuts
Yeah.
and stuff. So that still continues.
Yeah.
That was started with my husband and I and Father Peter. Like we were the first ones
Oh, very nice.
to do that with him. And it was beautiful because at the end of Mass, my kids were like, we're not going down for Borek. So we would have to go down. And what was great about it, it was not like you left Mass and you said goodbye to everybody. I saw that it was so important to go down every Sunday because what you were seeing is that my kids were involved in running around the center with my cousin's kids. That because of life circumstances, it's not like when we grew up, we were in each other's houses every weekend.
Yeah.
Now every weekend is like who's going to football, who's going to basketball, who's going to volleyball, who's going here, who's going there. Now they have this opportunity every hour to spend and build
To be
a
together.
bond with my cousin's kids.
Yeah.
So that was great about it. And then when Rosafati was always, the dance group was there all the time. And when they became of age to go dance, because I think I started when my son was about 1.5 to volunteer. And it got to the point where my kids were in church like 3 times a week. So it was Sunday for church, Saturday for dance,
It was a cultural
Friday dance, Saturday religious instruction, and Sunday was Mass, and then downstairs, and then
meeting the cousins and the friends.
and then it continued with pizza parties.
Oh, nice. I remember.
So there were pizza parties were started by one group before when the church was located in by Fordham Road, and then when it moved up there, we started doing the pizza parties downstairs, and that was an opportunity for young teens, young adults to come dance, and just have a good time. And we would do those like once every other month. And then we would do themed parties for kids, like the Halloween party, and kids would come and we would
You've
do
even
concerts.
hosted a health fair, which I was a part of.
The church, so there's another group, the education. There's lots of groups in the church, in the Mother Teresa Center. And Drita was one of them. They did the parties. There's Shpresa Shiptare now that does trips for the youth group. There was a different youth group before that. There's the education that does the health fair. And we've done health fairs multiple times. I think at least once a year before COVID, and then COVID hit. And then, so now I think they're back
They
on
were
track.
starting it again.
And we have some really dedicated Albanian doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners that look and seek. If the church doesn't call out, they're like, hey, when are we doing this again? And they do a little bit of health screening, which is important. Health education also. They'll talk about, we used to have some diabetes and other things happen at the church. So like, I often say, like, we didn't run into those, like I see the news and the town meetings of parents are outraged about these books and the, whatever's going on. Unfortunately, the district that I work for, they are more concerned with safety, food, making sure that their kids are healthy. We have other issues that's not the top of concern.
It's not the agenda, yeah.
So they don't have the luxury of thinking about other things other than, is my child okay from going from school to home, walking through?
Because the district you're working in is the underserved communities where
So
you
they
don't know what
have
their home life is like. Do
right.
they have food? Sometimes school is the only way that they're getting food.
In
It's a
some
different
cases,
struggle, yeah.
they're different struggles. So those never really became like a topic of conversation in that community. It was more of like,
But what is your stance towards that topic, though, with other schools that you hear about it?
Listen, it's up to you as an individual. I think I think what's important for me, if I had children of that age group that are in school today, and my oldest is 32, and my youngest is 27. So I don't fall into that category. But if I did, I think it's important is for parents to have choice. Do I want my child to be participating in a conversation about sex ed at, first grade, second grade, third grade, body parts? leave that up to me.
But that's how it was back then. Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that we would have to have a signed letter from your parent to be part of this class. And there was a group of kids that their parents did not want them at first grade and second grade to learn
I don't
about
think we
sex
did that
ed.
at first grade and second grade. I don't think that education came in.
I think it was like second or third grade because I remember that I was removed from the. I don't like this.
That's
I
fine.
mean, it could be politically charged conversation, but I am an adult and I'm entitled to my own opinion. I think a healthy sex education should start at home, not from an adult.
That's fine.
An external
Talking about
person
that.
talking about to my child about their personal space, and I think it should start at home. So, and
No, I
maybe
mean,
as Albanians we're super conservative and we don't have that conversation with kids.
it's not
I mean,
about-
I had it with my daughters. I never thought
that's
about
a good
having it with
topic
my
too,
son.
yeah.
I had it with my daughters when they were little. I'm like, making sure this is your property, like
Right.
no one touches your property, like cute ways of doing it is when they sent them off to pre-K.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that kids are aware of things that can be done and not done to them from any level of authority. So I think that's important. And I don't, my parents never had that conversation with us
I don't think they know how to.
No, they didn't. Their conversation, I went to Catholic school, so my father's conversation when he came, or my mother for parent teacher, does she listen? That's all they wanted to know. And if she doesn't listen, do you see that stick you have there?
Yeah.
Use it. So that's not healthy, you know? And I think we have a level of respect for authority way too much that as Albanian parents, I think my parents trusted authority more than they did their kids, right? And I know that is not unique to just Albanians. That is of any culture that comes from a third world nation, right?
Yeah.
I know that a lot of my Hispanic or Latino parents never questioned my authority with the kids, which I found problematic. They never pushed on maybe what's best for their child, but said, okay, whatever. They agreed. And my Albanian parents did too, which was problematic to me. I'm like, no, don't agree. Like, you want a better level. Like, no, he acts out. He's disrespectful, yes. But maybe it's because he's bored. Don't quickly sign those papers to say he's tested because I've never seen him in that light. You understand what I'm saying? So, like when a child misbehaves, a teacher will say, well, you need to get him tested and maybe he needs special ed.
Yeah.
And most parents won't question the authority. And that's not good either.
I think you have to find the balance between the two. Right?
But parents have to educate themselves.
Yeah.
Like what is in your realm of control and what you're entitled to and what your child's entitled to. So that's important.
I agree. But I do want to bring it back to Elsa in that conversation because, again, you are Mark Jonas' sister. Mm-hmm. And that's where we met. We met at our first campaign. I was one of the volunteers back in the day.
You
with Marco Kepi, Dorian, and the whole Albanian
Dorian.
roots,
You and Dorian were always together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all three of us were always together. But that was a good experience for us to be part of that whole journey. I feel like because, Mark did break through as the first Albanian American politician into American politics. Walk us through a little bit of that experience because you were part of that campaign too. You with the bullhorn and, I remember going, with the car and just screaming, Mark Jonai, vote Mark Jonai.
Were you in the car with me?
I was in the car.
Yeah, not some of my proudest moments.
But it was a fun.
You know what it is?
A fun experience.
It's fun. It was absolutely fun. It was intense. Like we didn't know how to run a campaign.
Yes, we did not know.
We had the chutzpah, the drive, the dedication, the passion. We were a very passionate group of people.
That's probably why you won. Everyone felt it.
It was. Let me tell you, we were very passionate, and we were going till like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes when closer
Late
to the
nights,
campaign. So it was hard for me because here is, the sister. And if you know any, you have any sister? Do you have a sister?
I have a sister, yes.
So that's, my brothers are my weak spot
Yeah.
with my kids and my mom as well and my parents, of course. So I was a sister protecting a brother,
Yeah.
advocating, cheerful, be the cheerleader as well, and also of concern, like this is what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
My parents were never politically interested, and like their family was their focus, right? And making sure that we were educated. So, you find yourself in listening to people say ill things about your brother.
Yeah.
And that's
Did you,
hard.
Did you roll up your sleeves?
Oh, many times wanted to, many times, but had to learn other ways of effective communication so that I don't make him look bad.
Right.
And that was tough, and then the competitive end, we wanted to win.
Yeah.
And make sure that here's the first Albanian to
was
win
a lot of
in
pressure.
New York City. It was a lot of pressure.
Yeah. No, I believe it.
And then many people also believed in him and donated a lot of money, so that was a big pressure as well.
Yeah.
Right, because you wanted to make sure that there was results.
Yeah, that not a dollar went to waste, and that we put everything into it. So our whole heart was into it.
Yeah.
So there was, it was kind of hard, and then
What was your role in the campaign?
I was just a volunteer, giving out flyers, going door to door, whatever they wanted me to do. We're always there, just doing something.
you did it, like, and
Yeah.
you learned so much. Like Mark's. I don't want to say he's not easy, but Mark is demanding, like not in a bad way.
He has a vision and he wants to
And he
do all the
pushes
steps to
you.
make it
He
happen.
pushes. And so there's never no like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
No, it's like you figure it out. And we figured out things. And we had some, decent campaign managers that also were very focused as well. And they all got bit by this Mark bug, like everybody did. It was like the energy in that office.
I remember I wasn't around for the second time, but the first time I was around.
That was the best one. I have to tell you, that was the
yeah.
best one. The second one wasn't as exciting as the
Yeah,
first one.
because it's getting that accomplishment from the Albanian community was big for us, at least the ones who supported Mark, through that journey, because we kind of felt part of that whole victory.
Everybody
because,
was.
And to me that was very special.
Everybody played a part. Like you didn't know what role you were playing that day. It was like whatever needed to be done. Like, do you remember the massive spreadsheet creation?
Oh my God!
Oh
yes.
my God!
Yeah.
It's like Mark had this goal of like we would do these weekly barbecues. So everybody took a role. My husband would barbecue, and we would feed 400 hot dogs and hamburgers.
Yeah, I was at that
every
grill
Sunday
too,
or Saturday. We were all in the grill, and then we would have these sign-up sheets and make everybody sign up. And we created our own mailing list, our own contact sheet.
Yeah.
And then getting that data to put in, it was a lot. It was a lot of work.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you balance a demanding career plus also an active family life, personal life. What strategies help you manage all of these different responsibilities successfully? What did you do to keep yourself sane, I guess?
So fortunately, I had a mom that would take care of my kids. So that was a plus. If not my mom, and there was an event that I needed to go to, and she was at the same event or couldn't take care of the kids, my husband did, or my sister-in-laws. Somebody you
had a village.
I had a village, and I think you need that. There's no way anybody could do this. Work full time, get 2 masters, raising 3 kids while obtaining the masters,
helping your brother out,
volunteering at the church. The church was easy. I volunteered at the church because it included my kids.
Right.
So wherever it is that I conclude my kids, I was there, you know? So, and I found a way to volunteer and do something, not be a passive mom of just drop. I'm not saying anything bad about moms that drop off kids, please. I'm just saying I wasn't that mom. I got, because that's who I am too. I like to be included and do things. So I would push myself into that area with anything that had to do with kids. I used to say this funny thing is I was asked this question when I was applying for the leadership program, and like, how do you juggle and manage? How would you, if you're doing this and you have to do your internship and you have to, what would you do? And I says, well, I'll tell you one thing. The first thing that goes is my hair, So the roots will be down to here because I could never get to the hair appointment. The second is the laundry gets piled up, like it'll get done. It's just that it's not folded and put away. And because the kids always came first, work, of course, first, because that's how I paid the bills and made sure that I was doing that well. Kids, I hate to say, like, are not second, but there's a balance between both.
But you had family support, so you were able to.
But it was also very important to me that the kids eat at a table every night.
Right.
And, so I did cook for them every night. Moms, so it's a good and a bad thing. The good is that you do, like, prepare these meals for kids every day, and when they start turning 20-something and you don't want to cook anymore, they're like, Mom, you're slipping. Because I'm like, we're ordering out. And then so that's what you get. You get these little ungrateful kids that are adults now that say, Mom, you're not cooking, so you're slipping. And I'm like, you know what? People retire after 30 years. I've been feeding you for 30-something years. I think I want to retire
It's time
from
for
that.
them to cook for you.
It's time for them to cook for me. And they do. They're good kids, so.
Very nice. Elsa, any messaging to young people who want to get involved more into career of education or community? Or what would you tell them? So
in getting involved in education, and I've said this a lot of times, it's unfortunate that for the teaching, when you're going for teaching in college, your student teaching is done at the end. And that's where you get your real world experience. And then you know if you really want to do this or not, right? At that time, you're so invested in college, like to do a major change in your major costs you a lot of money. So now you're kind of trapped. And so when you're in education, it's not like you can transition into this business world or finance or doing other things. You're kind of stuck if you leave with an education major, right? So one thing I would say is, like, before you even think about going into the field of education, figure out a way to go to your local school and see if you can volunteer and see if that's something you want to do.
Right.
And there are high schools now that allow you to do that, in your last year of high school before you transition to college. Like, pick like a co-op program of some kind that you can test it out and see if this is something that you want to do, because it is challenging. 30 kids, somebody else's children, 25 to 30 kids that you are responsible for, every day is, a huge responsibility. Are you up for it? So it's really important that you do that. Get it, really know before it becomes too late and you're trapped into it. Because we see teachers that come in and they think this is what they want to do, and maybe that's not the thing for them. They're smart people, but teaching is just not being smart. There's a level of emotional intelligence that you have to have and empathy in order to do this job the right way. Because I'm sure if I asked you what teacher do you remember, it's not the teacher that was the smartest teacher. It's probably the one that made an impression on you because they treated you like you belonged, and that they welcomed you in many different ways.
The only teacher I remember was my ESL teacher from high school that really stood out.
Because she probably cared about you.
Yeah, that was...
You felt cared for.
That was the only one.
I remember my teachers are the ones that cared for me or the ones that didn't.
Yeah.
Those are the two I remember.
I was going to say, the teachers that stand out to me are actually the ones who I think were one of the worst teachers I've ever had.
Yeah, because they didn't care for you.
No.
Right.
Exactly.
And so that's important. So like really know that this is something you want to do because you don't want to feel like you're trapped and then be resentful.
Yeah.
And then ultimately the kids suffer.
Right.
Your students suffer. As far as a mom, and I think I'm blessed that both my daughters speak Albanian. Like so, I was born here, and then to have my children be able to speak Albanian, it's okay. It's decent.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that. My son, unfortunately, he had two sisters that he was speaking English in the house with. Like, but we weren't allowed to speak English.
Right.
Like growing up, I was not allowed to speak a word of English at home, and that was, in hindsight, it was good. As a child, I'm like really angry and resentful at my parents that I wasn't allowed to speak. So we would whisper with Mark, like in English, so they wouldn't hear us. Because we would get yelled at if we didn't speak Albanian. So I think it's important that we as parents, in order to keep our culture and identity, that we embrace a lot of the other stuff that we maybe don't want to embrace, but speak Albanian at home, watch Albanian TV, like involve yourself in Rosafati or any dance group, wherever it is.
Be engaged.
Community events.
Community events. And you'll get that bug. Like if Mark's campaign, like people showed up one time and thought they were going to be there for one day, and they would show up the next day. Because there was something about being together with a common cause.
But it was a mission. We had a mission, right? So we had a mission. We had a mission. We had to fulfill
and we had
that
Albanian
mission.
pride, a lot of pride, and that felt good. It really felt good. It felt good.
Elsa, thank you for being here, for having the conversation with us.
Thank
it was
you
a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I know it goes
here.
by very fast.
It does. It does.
But it was a joy to hear more
Always
about your
a pleasure.
background and talk about old memories. So thank you.
There were
again.
some good times there.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Now, retirement, I'm looking for another cause. So I'm trying to find.
Oh, we can help you with this. So
I'm
many
trying
causes.
to figure out where I want to put myself in now, because now I have that luxury of more of a choice. Mark being out of politics is great for us, and just finding more of where I want to focus my attention.
Well, we look forward to supporting whichever cause you decide
Thank
to
you. Thank
join.
you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.